Good morning. I'm Michael. Welcome to the Morning Burrito. It is 10 o'clock on Tuesday, and we are in week 4.
Week 4.
And we had a great time talking about aliens last week.
Well, we did.
Eric,
actually.
it has been such a joy to do this for the last 3 weeks, and today we are going to have some fun, and next week we're going to have some fun.
Yes.
Really, we're not going to be as deep the next 2 weeks.
Deep. Aliens was deep?
Yeah, it was pretty deep.
Okay, maybe.
I mean, it didn't start that way, but it ended that way.
It's all good.
So today we got our burritos, unlike last week.
Green ones.
These are more like lunch burritos, I guess.
Tasty.
But today we are going to go into compassion, and this is a really big subject to unpack for our audience.
It's huge.
So why don't you break down for us to get us started? What is a cool story you have, or a fun, laughable story?
Story time already?
Oh yeah, let's
Right
start with a story about just compassion. What do you think of when you hear the word compassion?
Well, do you want to know what I think of, or do you want a story?
A story that illuminates what you think of it.
Oh, well,
Because I want to eat.
okay, you
Right.
eat. So probably one of the stories that comes to mind is we're on this mission trip with our students, and it was a trip to white collar people that lived in a marina and out on their yachts and multi-million-dollar boats, stuff that we would only dream about. And the idea was to go and present the need for what the people's needs were, I guess, and asking them, hey, what can we help you with? Was the simple question. It was just compassion for them. And we walked away from that pretty disappointed because, I mean, honestly, we had like 40 of our students all primed and ready to go. And we go out on the docks, and we're talking to people on their boats. And after about 2 hours of walking those docks, where the kids are really excited, they came back one at a time, and they're just really kind of bummed out. They're like, we can't help anybody here. Nobody needed help. So when I look at compassion, it's kind of hard to maybe do that sometimes because we don't really know what the needs are. So you ask, but it's hard when you have money to not really know what your needs are. So that's one. I don't think people know what their needs are sometimes.
So, kind of like we've done the last 3 weeks, 4th week, why change precedent? Defining the term that we're discussing is probably an important part of this discussion. So, let's start here very simply. What does it mean? Like, what does the word compassion actually mean? Not the Merriam-Webster definition of compassion, but what is compassion? What is not compassion?
Compassion, I would say, is what's coming from your heart. It's a heart thing. We lose the translation of that by saying, this is what I'm passionate about. And there's a big difference between passion and compassion. Compassion is an action. It's what you have, but it comes from the heart. It's more than just the word of... I'm passionate about a lot of things, but compassion, the action of passion, is kind of hard sometimes.
You are passionate about coffee.
I am, very much so, which I should have had coffee this morning.
I'm passionate about water.
Yeah.
We're not advertising Nestle, but
Right, that's why I got my label turned backwards, so they didn't know. Keeps us honest.
So, in the church world,
Yep.
we tend to use a phrase that is synonymous in our eyes with compassion.
Okay.
We'll use the phrase loving your neighbor. So how does loving your neighbor, is it the same as compassion? Is it part of compassion? Is it the whole definition? Is that really what it is?
Man, we should ask some of these guys what they think of that. I wish we were live right now, because that would have been a really fun question to ask them on live so they could
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
type in. I think loving your neighbor, I think we lose it sometimes because it fits our narrative. Like, we love the people that we're able to love. We love people that we agree with. We love people that look like us, smell like us, live like us. But we want to think that, well, we're good people. So we love everybody. Let's love everybody. But we really don't. Where compassion is across the board to everybody. And that's hard to do, because you got to have compassion for everybody that doesn't look like you, talk like you, smell like you.
If you're watching this or listening to us today, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I don't have a problem with that. I love everybody. I am compassionate. But I think as we get through this episode today, our hope is that you'll be challenged, because even in our pre-show discussion, I'm even challenged at this. I think we all struggle sometimes with I could love a whole lot better than I do. In our
I gotta love what?
in our Sunday service, you talked about I think you asked this question, what about that guy that you see that needs help, and you don't, do you help? Do you not help them? Is basically where you went.
Yeah.
And I get challenged with that all the time. This is this is a story I think everybody can relate to. You're driving down the road and you see the car that's, stranded on the side of the road. And there's somebody, and you just keep driving right on by, right?
Keep on going.
Or, you see the person walking down the street and, they're a normal, it's not like they look like they're going to, jump in your car and have an axe and murder you or something. But
You've seen too many movies.
yeah, I know. But you see that person walking down the street, and instead of stopping when you feel like you should, zoom right on by. That's one thing where I get real challenged, and the Holy Spirit for me talks to me a lot about that and challenges me, and because there are a lot of times where I feel like I'm supposed to do something and I just pass up those opportunities.
So why do you pass those up though?
That's a great question. I think most of us would say we don't know. Sometimes it's fear. I think depending on the situation, it could be fear. Sometimes it's busyness, right? We live in probably the most busy culture that has ever existed at this point. I mean, we are so go, 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 go. I mean, everything we do, even voting this year, was drive-through. So,
Right. Exactly.
I mean, like we love speed. We have the
You can get tested for this pandemic that's going to end your life in a drive-through tent.
yeah. I'm waiting for the drive-through flu shot where you just stick your arm out the window and they stick you with the needle. Because
Graydon and Katie, they're flying back today actually from Australia.
right,
Woo! And
that's his oldest son, by the way.
yeah. And anyway, they got their COVID test yesterday, and what they did there in Australia is they said they stuck the Q-tip little thing up their nose, tickled their brain, and they took it out, and then instantly asked them to open their mouths, and they stuck the same end of the Q-tip and swabbed the back of their throat.
Gross.
Why? Why do they do that in Australia and not here? I'm glad they don't do that here. But anyway,
Yeah, they can
I just
keep,
thought I'd share that.
Australia can keep that. I'm
Ugh.
okay with that being an Australian thing,
So do you have COVID in the nose or in the throat?
or both.
That's what I didn't know. So anyway,
But no, but I think the first part of compassion is for anybody. I mean, whether you believe in Jesus or not, whether you have the Holy Spirit and living in you or not, I think we all have that, conscience, whatever you want to call it, and you get those urges, those feelings where you're supposed to be doing something, and you bypass those opportunities. You
right?
allow
He's flying around.
a bug
Is
in
that
here.
alien? That's what that is.
It's like the
Beady
begin.
eyes.
It's like the beginning of Men in Black with the dragonfly. Okay. Anyway, we get on that conversation again. Well, let me ask you this.
Well, no, wait. You said that you think that most of us, we probably don't know why we don't help people. Isn't that what you said?
Well, I think there's multiple reasons for it. I think in the moment we know why we're not doing it.
Yeah, I think we do know why.
Yeah.
I think it's
A lot of
because
times it's laziness
it's
too.
going to cost us money, time, sweat. I mean, I'm not going to get everything accomplished that I wanted to today. We know exactly why we don't have compassion on people.
Sure. But I do think that, a lot of times it's a subconscious thing. It's just an immediate reaction that our brains have taught us. The reality is if you go in other places in the world, this is not how people react.
Right.
People don't behave the same way we do as Americans, or just, let's say Western people, Western culture. We are a selfish people. Like, we've just been raised to be selfish in this country.
Seriously?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
an
so.
only child. I am not selfish. See, you can't even argue that. Okay, so I'm not.
I'll let you
Let's just move on.
determine
We'll
that.
just go on.
You just opened that door. Way to go. No, so one of the things you had said kind of in one of your comments earlier was that it can be hard to be compassionate for people who, don't look like us, don't think like us, don't run in the same circles we do. Maybe they're an enemy. Maybe they're just somebody you don't like. Whatever the case is, why do we have such a hard time being compassionate with people that are different or, in one of those categories?
Yeah, I wish I had an answer for that. I think it's just kind of inbred in us. That's the way we think. I think it's easy for us to lose sight sometimes of really, I don't know, who we are. We're not all that important. We're replaceable in about everything in life. And I don't know if that's part of it. I don't know.
So I grew up in Chicago, and you went to college in the Chicago area. Yep. So we ran in the same area for a while. And I don't know about you, but when I would go to downtown Chicago with groups of friends or whatever, young adult group or whatever, I remember this one time we were walking down State Street, right near where the Chicago Theater is, and I mean, just really a beautiful part of Chicago's downtown area. And we came to this intersection, and the L train is right above us, and right up against the building is this homeless guy. And if you've been to any big city, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, LA, whatever, I mean, this happens everywhere. In the downtown area, especially when it's decent outside, you're going to see a lot of homeless people with signs and things, and some are washing windows of cars or attempting to, all that stuff.
Walk up and squeegee your window and want $1.
Right, exactly. But this gentleman, I feel guilty even saying this because this is true, but it is guilt. There is some guilt in this or shame in this, maybe. Our group walked up and we ignored him for as long as we possibly could. We pretended as if he wasn't behind us.
The old pretend. I don't see you.
And you could tell it was aggravating to him that we were just, he was an African-American fellow, and we're these, group of white kids from the suburbs of Chicago, and we're completely ignoring this guy. And one of the girls in our group at the time, she turns around and she goes to start talking to this guy. I couldn't tell you what his name was, but what I do remember is that his sign was something I will never, ever, ever forget. Absolutely unforgettable sign. Most of the time they say, we'll work for food, money for house or, housing or whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of different signs. This guy, he actually put on his sign, I know what you think. I'm going to use the money for alcohol.
Hey, at least he was honest.
Which was the whole point. It was so unforgettable because he was being completely transparent.
You ever wonder where they get the markers?
I do.
Do you have an answer?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
But anyway, this guy was a really, really cool dude to talk to. We all of us ended up turning around since this girl was having the conversation and heard his story. And his story was hard to hear. I mean, it was really a really difficult story.
Was it a true story, you think?
Parts of it probably. I mean, there was probably aspects of it that were exaggerated at very minimal. But as we talked to him, we told him, we said, look, man, we can't justify just giving you money so you can go spend it on alcohol, which I'm sure you understand. And he understood that. But we said, this is what we will do. We'll take you over to the Walgreens on the corner or whatever. We'll get you a blanket, get you a pillow, get you, some other things that, you may need. And we'll take you to the McDonald's on the other corner and we'll get you some food. How's that sound? And we took this guy and we all chipped in and got him some stuff at the Walgreens, got him the McDonald's. And it was one of those moments where when I look back on it that day, at that moment, I was like, man, how did I completely miss that opportunity? If it wouldn't been for that girl, the whole group would have missed that opportunity to be compassionate on a guy who clearly was in a bad place. I mean, he may still be in the bad place as of today. I don't know. But he didn't look like me. He wasn't in the same position. I've never been in that position, so maybe that played into it, like we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on your circumstance, I think, at the moment, and what your focus is. because you didn't go on that trip with that specific thought in mind, right? To help
Correct.
that guy. So I took a group to inner city Chicago, down on the second level of Chicago, where all the trucks, go in and delivery and all that.
Like Lower Wacker Drive,
Yeah,
that area?
exactly. And we had the mission in our mind to go have compassion on these people. And we went, and same thing. We didn't give them money, but we took them to McDonald's or fast food or whatever to eat. And man, my group was so excited to go help that we met this guy. He starts talking, hear a story. We take him to, I think it was a Burger King that was down there. And we're standing in line. We got his food. We sat. We ate. We listened to this whole story, and left the same way, heartbroken. And think, man, if I was just living life, I would have missed the opportunity for that. But it was about 2 months later. I'm back in Chicago, kind of in a different side of town, and we're at this walk-up kind of diner, street diner thing, and this guy's looking really familiar to me. Could not place him, and we're standing in this long line, and his voice rang true in my head. And once I recognized the voice, I recognized the man, and then I recognized the setting where I saw the man. And it was the man I met 2 months earlier with my group that was down in the inner city of Chicago,
Wow.
dressed like a street person, and took us on a journey for a story and $1. And so I talked to him and confronted him on it. And I was like, hey, do you remember me? And he's like, yeah, no. And I don't think he really remembered me. But I told him that we had talked a couple weeks ago, and he was, just kind of off in order. Well, actually, he found out he's a lawyer. And he does
Wow.
this on his weekends as a stress relief. And I was so ticked off at that guy because then we were able to have a real conversation. And he knew I was a pastor. He knew I was part of the church. And he was very apologetic. He said, I don't ever mean to hurt anybody. But
isn't that, wouldn't that play into now it's harder for you the next time
It is.
to be
You bet.
compassionate because you've been, it's like the fool me once, fool me twice thing,
Right.
And the question obviously in that situation would have to be asked, isn't that stealing? Like it's manipulation, it's
Well, it
theft,
is. But we also grew so much out of that. Because I
Sure.
went back and told my group the story. And they're like, are you serious? Let's go TP his house. Back when we had lots of TP. We did those
yeah,
things.
we don't have toilet paper right now.
Not right
It
now.
just all disappeared off
right
the
now.
shelf again.
But it was the same trip that we were on that this guy came across us, and same thing. We went and we still had the same mindset that, hey, we're here to give compassion to whoever needs it. And this guy's name's Gus. Still remember his name?
Gus.
Gus
I
was
love
a
that
man
name.
that sold the homeless street newspaper. I don't remember the name of that newspaper, but they would sell it and they would get like so much proceed out of it. But so he came out to sell us a newspaper, and of course, we bought everything he had, and but then we were gonna feed him, and it was dusk-ish. And right behind me, the only restaurant that was there was like this 4-star restaurant. Right behind us on the same sidewalk, it was like me, the door, like to you. We were that close. And we had talked to this guy probably for, 15, 20 minutes, got his, story, built a little relationship. And I said, hey, come on in, let's get you something to eat. And when I turned around, the sign on the door went from open to closed. And this man just was like lit up on fire and just totally irritated.
Yeah.
Well, that was aimed toward me because now I'm the white guy that was going to take him in there, and they won't even let me in to do it. And so everybody now is against him. And anyway, the situation went really, really bad. We won't get into all those details, but it went really bad. And out of all my training and all of my gut instinct working with homeless people for the years that I did, I actually ended up decking this guy in the street of downtown Chicago at night in front of my students. Did
you get fired?
I didn't get fired, but I would do the same thing today because it was a very dangerous situation that he put us in. And but my kids are like, "Ah," and my wife, she's already gone with the kids. And anyway, it was a mess. And we take off, and we're walking as fast as we can down the sidewalk. And Gus gets up out of the street, walks on the other side of the road, and he's walking down the other sidewalk. And I noticed something very, very unique that I had not experienced before. As far as I knew, it was my group and Gus on the road. But when he walked past every alleyway, there were people that came out of the alley, and I couldn't walk my group fast enough.
Oh,
and before I
geez.
knew it, here comes somebody had gone down and gotten our church van, and we had an emergency system in case we had this kind of problem. Here comes a van. It comes screeching up to the curb. We're throwing kids in the van, and we take off. And Gus is urinating on the street as we're leaving, just to show us that he was still the one in charge. And that was a growth moment for us. And the question we asked was, well, how do you do compassion for people that all of a sudden you don't trust anymore? And I think there is a trust factor when it comes to compassion, but it's got to come from the heart.
Right.
So no matter if it's a lawyer who lies to you because he does it on the weekend for stress relief, or if it's really somebody like Gus who really does need the help, we can't put our emotions into it. It's got to be driven from the inner part of your heart. And I think as Americans, we really struggle with what compassion is.
Well, in the reality, the thing to take away from both of those stories is that, just because somebody may dupe you, somebody
really
may,
good.
yeah, they are.
Green one.
Somebody may mistreat you. That doesn't change what you learn or what you grow out of it. Especially that first story. I mean, regardless of the intentions of the, I pause to even say gentleman, but the individual.
I'll just leave it at lawyer.
Yeah, the lawyer. Your kid still grew out of that. You still grew out of that as a leader, as a pastor, and so that's a great thing. One of the things that we talked about in our pre-show meeting, and just something that we both noticed over the course of our lives and our pastoral careers, people tend to be more compassionate, more giving, more generous at specific times of the year.
Right.
And not so much at other times in the year. They may be passionate about things, very passionate. Some of the examples that we talked about is times that they don't seem to be very compassionate or giving or generous is tax time.
Tax season.
Tax time seems to be a rough time. Certainly right after Christmas is a rough time to be compassionate or giving.
Gotta pay the Visa bill.
We've seen this in these last couple months, or really probably the last year. Election time, people are a lot less generous or giving, especially when we talk about people they don't agree with and those sorts of things. But we also see that people are generally much more prone and much more able or willing to be generous and giving in the holidays. And as we are coming into Thanksgiving in a couple weeks, and Christmas is not far behind that, why do you think that is that we... Like, everybody across the board is much easier for the most part at being giving this time of year, but in those other times, summertime when we're going on vacations and all that, we don't want to be giving. We just can't do it.
I think it's a loaded question you set me up for, is what I think.
Boom! Drop the mic. Let's go.
Because it'd be really easy to answer that question by simply saying we feel like we have to give compassion to somebody because we're living in such a, I don't even know what the word would be, but we're spending all the money on us for Christmas. Give me a word.
Selfish.
Selfish. Oh, okay,
Self-serving.
I could have thought of that. So we're being really selfish in what we're doing. So of course we have to balance that out. So I think that's, one reason we see compassion at this time. The other thing is that it is pretty cool. It's a dynamic where we're all in it together. I mean, we have a word called Thanksgiving, and we're supposed to spread the Christmas joy, right? Or the Xmas joy if you're being PC. It's like everybody's doing it. So
Festivus.
Of course we feel good with it, right? And that's wrong because it's not heart driven. It's
seasonal.
Selfish, seasonal driven, right? I mean,
It's what you're supposed to do. It's an obligation.
Yeah, it's what you do. And whether it's tradition that's what you do, I mean, we're going to talk traditions here pretty quick, I'm just going to tell it now. Can I do that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So next week, traditions. Famous, most authentic, most real, the biggest, the happiest traditions for Thanksgiving that you can come up with. That's what we're going to talk about.
And so it just, while we're taking this pause, start sending in some comments for next week. Give us some ammo, some stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
In the comments for this show, we'll take a look at them and we'll include them in next week's show. If you have some,
wow, we just thought of that right now.
And if it's funny, it could be just really cool. It could be not so good traditions, ones that didn't work out so well.
That could be really funny.
Whatever. I post them in the comments and we'll put those into next
and
week's
we're
show.
sorry we don't have a T-shirt to send you. for doing that. So if we use
Maybe
yours,
someday.
if we use yours on the podcast, you get nothing. Just saying. So
But you can have a burrito.
well, you got to make it yourself.
That's true.
All right.
So anyway, getting back to where we were
Yeah.
at, I've had a hard time with the people don't think like me, people don't look like me, so therefore I'm not going to be generous. As pastors, it's always a catch-22 for us, because when we start talking about giving and generosity and things, people always assume we're going for their pocketbook.
Exactly.
And so that always is not for everybody, but for many people within our churches, they tend to immediately close their ears like, no, I'm not going to
You
listen
can
to
almost
that.
see the earplugs go in. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to hear about this because you're going to challenge me to give something that I don't want to give. So it made me think of, as we were discussing this in pre-show, the Good Samaritan story.
Yeah.
And, there's this guy that walks up to Jesus and he says, "Hey, Jesus, how do I get into heaven? How does this happen?" And Jesus says, "Well, you follow the commandments. You do the things you're supposed to do. Love your mother and father, honor them. Love the Lord your God. This, that, and the other." He's like, "Oh, dude, got that. Good. We're good there." Okay, well, sell all your possessions, give the money to the poor, then you can come follow me. And what was his reaction?
His brakes were on full bore, man.
As soon as
can't
Jesus
do
went
that.
for the stuff,
Yep.
that was the end of the conversation. And it says actually in Scripture that this rich young ruler, rich man, goes away sad and disappointed.
What he thought of Jesus before that question was posed, definitely a different answer at that moment.
And I think it really sums up how we are when it comes to our stuff. And again, we're not just talking about money here. We're not just talking about your stuff.
Right.
Although that does come into play.
Time, talent, sweat equity,
Sure.
all of it.
Again, going back to where we started this conversation, there are plenty of times where you're driving down the road. It's not going to cost you anything other than time, and you just completely ignore the car on the side of the road. Right. You may not have to spend one dime, but you're going to have to spend some time, and that time is valuable to you, so therefore you're not going to waste it, quote unquote, on somebody that you don't know. What's even more sad is the people who won't give the time to their own families, to their own loved ones.
Yep.
This is not something we even had in show notes, but this is just something that came to me. Why do you think we have such a hard time with even our loved ones of being compassionate?
Because we're compassionate with them all the time. It's time to buck it up. Put your big boy pants on. Let's go. I mean,
you see it in families all the time, especially as pastors. We see it.
Yep.
In fact, we've seen it recently in just our church, and some of our people that are connected to our church. The compassion for people within a family is not necessarily there, and it's heartbreaking to watch. Right? What's the solution?
Well, I think part of the problem of that, before you get to the solution, is that that happens because we do live with each other in close proximity, and you become blind to what some of the hard emotions are, and you become blind to what the person maybe really is dealing with. You know what it's like. When you were new, when you first moved here, you walk around our campus and you would have noticed all kinds of things. But now you've been here a year, and you could walk through here and you wouldn't notice those things anymore because you've lived in it.
Sure.
So I think that's part of the problem when it comes to family and compassion. We live with you, and we know you, and we know you're going to get over it. So, just buck it up and go. But what's the solution? I think part of the solution is you've got to really just answer the question between you and the Lord. Do I have a heart of compassion? And if I don't, Lord, show it to me. Give it to me.
And I apologize. I said Good Samaritan story, but I told the rich young
You
ruler.
told the Rich Young Ruler story. I followed
So
it.
I apologize for
did
that.
I did
But when we talk about the solution, we can talk about the Good Samaritan story.
We can, because in that story that you bombed on, just pointing that out.
Oops.
It's
Hey, at least I acknowledged it.
You did. I was going to let it go, But so in that story, it's found, in the New Testament book of Luke, that Good Samaritan traveled down the same road as two previous guys. One guy was a priest, So can you imagine what it's like being the guy that got beat laying in the street, blood in his eyes. He sees help coming, and it's this priest, and he's going like, man, a priest helps everybody. And then all of a sudden, the scripture says that the priest crossed the other side of the road, didn't even look. He just kind of went, and looked the other way.
He did the exact same thing we're talking about.
Exactly. And then then there's a second guy who was a religious leader. He was a Levite. And if there's anybody that should help, it's anybody who knows anything about, their faith and loves their God and, goes to church, probably never misses a day and gives them the offering and gives to missions and, whatever. But the Levite, Bible says, he didn't go to the other side. He just avoided him. Like he walked by, but looked the opposite way. I mean, totally avoid. And then there's that third person, the Samaritan that comes down the same road, same amount of time. And the guy in the ditch is a Jew, and the Samaritan who's walking the road is his enemy. And
Why is that significant that they're the Jews and the Samaritans?
Okay, because it's racial.
Okay.
So this whole racist thing, you talk about racism in our nation now today, it's nothing different than it was back in this time. So racism has always been there. So here this guy is. He walks by. He's looking at his brother. He's got a racist heart. And both of them do. If there's ever a guy he didn't want to have help him out of the ditch, it would be the Good Samaritan, because not everybody's going to talk and you just kind of go that way. But what he did is he stopped and he looked, and instead of spitting on the guy when he walked by, like maybe the Levite did, right? I mean, he didn't physically spit, but he turned his head. The Bible says that he had a heart of compassion. His heart went out to him. Yep. And so what's this guy do? His brother, his racist brother, goes, picks him up, puts him on his donkey, takes him into town, puts him up at a 5-star hotel, which probably is more like a Motel 6. I'm not really sure. But puts him up in there, tells the innkeeper, hey, I'm going to pay his bill. If there's more, take care of him, give him first-class first aid. They did all his disinfecting, took care of his wounds and bandages, and then he left. He comes back and to pay his bill and square up, and then Jesus goes to the guy and says, hey, which one of these three? To this scholar, this religious guy who was asking the question that you brought up, wrong story, but same question. He says, well, which one of the three? And the guy was like, well, the one that took care of him. And then Jesus says, well, go and do likewise. Go do the same thing.
Yeah.
And my question is, did the guy go do the same thing? The Bible doesn't tell us if he did it. I want to say he did not do it.
If we're going by human nature, he didn't, right? We talked about this before. We tend to go back to our priors.
You go back to what you know.
What we know and where we're at. And so, whether it's politics, whether it's race, whether it's religion and, the different religious philosophies or theologies or whatever, maybe it's just you don't like how somebody looks. Maybe you don't like where they live.
Maybe it's the shine on their head. I don't know.
That was a nasty
You took it
meanness.
personal. I never said your name.
Y'all got that. You understand what he just did. But we always go back to our priors. And so, I'd love to believe that the guy who was helped by the Good Samaritan was changed and different for the rest of his life. But we don't know that, and we can't assume that because humans don't change very much. We're very, very against changing our being, who we are. So let's wrap this up, and I guess the thing that we need to end with is maybe a story from each of us from our own experience of where maybe for you personally, I have one that's more personal to me, where God kind of grabbed you and said, hey, you have a bad attitude about this, and you were in a service type of opportunity. Do you have a story like that? Or have you just been always good attitude and you just serve and don't ever have an issue?
Well, I wasn't thinking of a bad attitude turning into a good, compassionate attitude. I probably have several of those stories. But you kind of want to forget some of those. I think out of one story that it probably doesn't answer that or fit that, but it's a story of my wife and I. We were in our first church together right after we were married. Actually, not right after, like 5 years after we were married. Found out we're pregnant, and it was a Sunday morning, and it was hard. It was a hard Sunday morning because we had just found out and just went through having a miscarriage.
Oh boy!
And It was our first miscarriage, and I had no idea what the word miscarriage even meant until that day. And as a pastor, we don't go ask our people for a lot. We don't go ask for really anything.
We have a hard time with that a lot of times.
We do. It's like, do not stand me up and applaud. I mean, that's just one of those moments. I get why we do it, but it's not ever a fun thing for us to go through. But I've never really was accustomed to going to my church asking for prayer and asking for financial help or asking for, time off to go better myself. And but what I saw out of my church on that Sunday, that was the first time that I saw a church have compassion on their pastor's wife and their pastor. I'm sure they always had it, right? I'm not saying the church didn't have it. So those of you part of Eureka, Illinois, I'm not saying you never had compassion, just saying this is the first time that I really, for the first time as a pastor, felt compassion from a church.
Yeah.
And what they did is they went around and they loved my wife. And that spoke more to me than them coming around me as men in the church. Some of you know who I'm talking about if you're watching, came around and comforted me and encouraged me in that time. That was all meaningful. But man, the compassion they showed my wife and the compassion from the church leadership board that came back, and said, hey, take as much time as you need. They ended up helping pay some of our medical bills at that time. They brought dinner, they brought food. And I got to the point where man, this is pretty cool. Not the miscarriage, but the food. I mean,
Sure. Who doesn't like
Christian
food?
women can cook.
Oh,
it was like a potluck every day in my house. It was awesome. I probably gained a lot of weight then. But so that for me was probably the first time of compassion. So that doesn't fit what you asked, but that
Sure.
comes to my mind.
So I always think of, again, when I was, a lot of things happened for me when I was just out of college. But I was in this young adults group, and they were going to do this service project to a assisted living facility for adults who are challenged in different ways, Down syndrome, those sorts of things. A lot less functioning, lower functioning folks. And when my buddy asked me to go, I was like, it's a Saturday. There's other things I could be doing with my time. I'm a single guy,
Right.
young single guy. Like, this is really not what I want to do with my Saturday.
Right.
I worked full time, so I wanted to sleep in, right, and just have my Saturday to myself. And so I kind of went begrudgingly. I was like, okay, whatever, I'm just going to go. And basically from the moment I walked into that facility, it was like the Holy Spirit smacked me flat across the face. It was one of those moments where I, from the word go, felt really, really uncomfortable and really awkward. Like God is speaking and I was not willing to listen. And by the time we got to the end of our time serving, we had gotten to share the gospel with a couple of residents, and we got to clean a lady's house or apartment that, this lady can't clean her own stuff, and her family had not been to see her in a year. And so her house was just disorganized and a mess. And, God spoke to me in that and said, you really had a bad attitude, and having a servant's heart really matters. That, serving other people and being compassionate for other people actually matters. And if you're going to be a leader, if you're going to be this man of God that you purport to be, you need to be willing to sacrifice your own comfort and your own time to help other people. And I would just echo, getting more specific to our people here at Hermnaz, because we like to bring it back to home. Our people, I've been in many churches. You've been in not nearly as many, but some. We've been all over the place between us and ministry. But I'll tell you what, this is no slight against other churches that I've served at, but these people at Hermnaz are just different. I think back to last Christmas time. Our church has this tradition of adopting families every year. Usually it's a family from the community, or somebody. One year it was a family who had been affected by a home fire, and last year, unbeknownst to us, you were actually struggling with a neck issue, and were laid up pretty good, and we had a baby on the way, and we were still new to Hermiston and all that, and our church adopted us. And I know in our personal conversations, we've tried to communicate this to our church, but that love and that compassion that they showed to our families, making sure that our kids had a good Christmas and all of those things. It goes beyond what we can give in words, and spread that passion to not just your pastors, not just people in your church.
Right.
There are people in your communities that need that touch from you. And so don't hesitate when the Spirit puts that on your heart. When you have that like tug or pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Pull the trigger.
Yeah, because last Christmas, I mean, we do serve a great church and serve with great people. But yeah, that was a good year last year. Because,
And this year we get to do it again.
Because for my own family last year, we had medical bills, and so
Yeah.
did you, getting ready for baby. And it really was because of our church that we had Christmas last year.
Yeah.
And that's never happened in my life before.
Sure. Yep.
I grew up in a blue-collar home, and we always had Christmas, and we always gave to other people. And as a pastor, we always have those seasons of giving and compassion. And but when I asked the church leadership team, who are we going to adopt, they said, "Oh, we'll work on it, Pastor." I had no idea what they're talking about until they announced it. And I'm
Right.
like, "They're doing what?" And then I was mad.
Well, and if you probably don't remember this because you were
I was
on drugs and
medication.
drugs, whatever, same
Medication.
difference. You weren't actually in the building. I was actually the only one in the building the Sunday they announced it last year.
Oh.
My family was at home, my daughter and my wife, and your family was out for that week. And I'll just never forget sitting in the front row, in the front pew that Sunday morning, and the overwhelming emotion as they announced that to the congregation. I mean, it was, like I say, it was overwhelming. I could not believe, I've been in some really good churches, and that was the first time that's ever happened. And this year, our people have decided to bless our senior adults.
Yep.
And what a cool...
Senior adults in assisted living and in isolation at home.
This has been such a hard time. COVID has been just awful for our seniors. And for our church to make the effort to invest in those families, in those couples, in those individuals who have been stuck in their apartments or for one reason or another, it's amazing. Our people are great.
They're great. And especially now that we're going to this lockdown or this freeze, that's supposed to be just 2 weeks. The news, when that hits our people that are in isolation and hits our assisted living people, we have a lady that, well, okay, I'm going to go with it because I already brought it up. I don't know if she's going to watch this or not because she does get online. So we have a lady in our church that has been isolated since March. Really, I mean, totally, and has been through horrendous things in her own personal life this year. She actually got on to Amazon last week, ordered a book. It was an author that she likes, but she didn't really care about reading the book. She ordered it just so she would have a box to open in the mail.
Wow.
And that's why I'm like, oh, man, you don't know what our church is about ready to do for you, but our church is ready to love on you.
Yeah.
And I mean, so it's a heart of compassion. That's what I love about our church, because it's not just the season. We do this all year long.
Right.
Right? I mean, Herb Naz, you do a great job. We adopt a school. We help immigrants. We help burn victims. We help people in Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda.
Honduras is coming up.
Honduras is coming up. I mean, the hurricanes in Honduras right now. We raised 240. I was going to say 240,000. What I was going to say.
That would be
nice.
awesome. That would have been cool.
But just $240 just yesterday for just even bringing it up that, hey, Honduras needs the funding because they lost everything. So,
And if you're a Hermnaz person and you're watching this today, jump on the bandwagon. Let's be a
serve.
part of this
Serve.
because it's serving, it's giving, it's sacrificially. I mean, Jesus gave everything for us, so giving a little bit of our time and our resources shouldn't be that big of a deal.
and if you're not here at Herb Naz, go to your church.
Yeah.
I mean,
If you don't have one, find one.
that's right. And if they're not compassionate, kick them in the tail feathers. Tell them your story, and this is what you want, and lead by example.
Yeah.
I know that we need people here that lead by example, and whatever church you go to or don't go to yet, that you're about to go to, lead by example.
Yeah.
And it's got to be a heart of compassion. It's not passion, and it's not interest, and it's not your platform, and it's not the things that you want to take a stand in. It really is compassion for those that are least in this world, and so do that. So yeah. So hey, thanks for watching today.
Yeah.
huge. I didn't get a chance to eat my whole burrito, but
did
we're
you even
going
take
to.
a bite?
Well, I did, but man, it was like I have to eat it when I.
You were
I-
excited about
well,
this
I was-
conversation
I was,
today.
but I have to be able to chew on it because that's like today it's like really really good for some reason.
So if you
I mean,
don't-
it was good last week. But
If you don't know, again, we're on Facebook. We're working on YouTube. Hopefully, that'll be done here soon. And then Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts.
Going, man. It's
We're all over the place. Please just share this. Send it out to everybody. This is not just for the Christian person. This is for anybody. And we just appreciate you taking the time and spending a half hour or so with us every Tuesday morning. So,
and I got one more story.
oh yeah,
So
close us out with a
it's-
story.
It's a story. Everybody that owns this will understand this short story. When it comes to compassion, if you own a pickup truck or a pickup truck and a trailer, enough said.
With that said,
You need to have compassion.
have a great week, and we will see you next week as we talk about traditions.
Traditions.
Let's go. All right, see you guys.
ya.